The Śūraṅgama Sutra, Volume 3, 65. Consider the nature of earth. Its coarsest aspect is the earth itself. Its subtlest aspect is a mote of dust, which at its smallest would be a particle of dust bordering on emptiness. If one divided one of those particles of dust that is barely formed to begin with into 7 parts and then split one of those parts, emptiness itself would be arrived at. Ananda, if a particle of dust bordering on emptiness can be divided to arrive at emptiness, it should be that emptiness can give rise to form. Just now you asked if mixing and uniting doesn't bring about all mundane transformations. You should carefully consider how much emptiness mixes and unites with itself to arrive at a single particle of dust bordering upon emptiness. Such a particle could not be composed of other particles of dust bordering on emptiness. Moreover, since particles of dust bordering upon emptiness can be reduced to emptiness, of how many particles of such form would emptiness be composed? When those particles of form mass together, a mass of form does not make emptiness. When emptiness is massed together, a mass of emptiness does not make form. You still have not realized that in the treasury of the Tathagata, the nature of form is true emptiness, and the nature of emptiness is true form. That fundamental purity pervades the Dharma realm. Beings' minds absorb it according to their capacity to know. Whatever manifests does so in compliance with karma. Ignorant of that fact, people of the world are so deluded as to assign its origin to causes and conditions or to spontaneity. These mistakes, which arise from the discriminations and reasoning processes of the mind, are nothing but the play of empty and meaningless words. Ananda, the nature of fire, is devoid of entity, being dependent upon various causes and conditions for its existence. Consider a family in the city that has not yet eaten. When they wish to prepare food, they hold up a brass mirror to the sun, seeking fire. Ananda, speaking of mixing and uniting, you and I and the 1,250 bhikshus unite to form a community. However, a careful analysis of the community reveals that every member composing it has his own body, family name, clan, and name. For instance, Shariputra is a Brahmin, Uruvilva is of the Kashyapa clan, and you, Ananda, come from the Gautama family. Ananda, if fire existed because of mixing and uniting, then when your hand holds up the mirror to the sun to seek fire, does the fire come out of the mirror? Does it come out of the muksa tinder, or does it come from the sun? Ananda, if the fire came from the sun, then only would it burn the muksa tinder in your hand. But as it came across the groves of trees, it should burn them up as well. Suppose it came from the mirror, since it would come out to the mirror to ignite the muksa tinder. Why doesn't the mirror melt? Yet as your hand that holds the mirror feels no heat, how could the mirror melt? If the fire came from the muksa tinder, then why would fire be generated only when the bright mirror came into contact with the dazzling light? Furthermore, on closer examination you will find that the mirror is held in your hands. The sun is high in the sky, and muksa is grown from the ground. So where does the fire come from? The sun and the mirror cannot mix and unite, since they are far apart. Nor can it be that the fire arises spontaneously without an origin. You still have not realized that in the treasury of the Tathagata, the nature of fire is true emptiness, and the nature of emptiness is true fire. That fundamental purity pervades the Dharma realm. Beings' minds absorb it according to their capacity to know. Ananda, you should know that fire can be generated any place where a mirror is held up to the sunlight. If mirrors were held up to the sunlight everywhere in the Dharma realm, fire would be generated everywhere. Since fire can come forth throughout the whole world, can there be any fixed place to which it is confined? Whatever manifests does so in compliance with karma. Ignorant of that fact, people in the world are so deluded as to assign its origin to causes and conditions, or to spontaneity. These mistakes, which arise from the discriminations and reasoning processes of the mind, are nothing but the play of empty and meaningless words. Ananda, the nature of water is mutable. Its flowing and stopping are erratic. Kapila, Chakra, Padma, Hasta, and other great magicians of Shravasti often hold up instruments to the light of the full moon at midnight to extract from it the essence of water to mix with their drugs. Does the water come out of the crystal ball that is used, or does it exist naturally in space, or does it come from the moon? Ananda, if the water came from the distant moon, then water should also flow from all the grasses and trees when the moonlight passes over them on its way to the crystal ball. If it did flow from them, why wait for it to condense on the surface of the crystal ball? Since it does not flow from the trees, then the water clearly cannot descend from the moon. If it came from the crystal ball, then it should flow from the crystal at all times. Why would one have to wait for midnight and the light of the full moon to receive it? If the water came from space, which is by nature boundless, it would flow everywhere, until everything between heaven and earth was submerged. How, then, could there still be travel by water, land, and air? Furthermore, upon closer examination, you will find that the moon moves through the sky. The crystal ball is held in the hand, and the pan for receiving the water is put there by someone. So where does the water that flows into the pan come from? The moon and the crystal ball cannot mix and unite, since they are far apart, nor should the essence of water arise spontaneously without an origin. You still have not realized that in the treasury of the Tathagata, the nature of water is true emptiness, and the nature of emptiness is true water. That fundamental purity pervades the Dharma realm. Beings' minds absorb it according to their capacity to know. A crystal ball can be held up at a certain place, and water will come forth. If crystal balls were held up throughout the Dharma realm, then throughout the Dharma realm, water would come forth. Since water can come forth throughout the entire realm, can there be any fixed place to which it is confined? Whatever manifests does so in compliance with karma. Ignorant of that fact, people of the world are so deluded as to assign their origin to causes and conditions or to spontaneity. These mistakes, which arise from the discriminations and reasoning processes of the mind, are nothing but the play of empty and meaningless words. Ananda, the nature of wind has no substance, and its patterns of movement and stillness are erratic. You always adjust your robe as you enter the great assembly. When the corner of your samgati robe brushes the person next to you, the air stirs against that person's face. Does that wind come from the corner of the kashaya sash? Does it arise from emptiness? Or is it produced from the face of the person brushed by the air? Ananda, if that wind came from the corner of the kashaya, then you would be clad in the wind, and your kashaya should fly off and leave your body. But my robe remains motionless, and hangs straight down now as I speak Dharma in the midst of the assembly. Observing my robe closely, Where is the wind in it? The wind could not be stored somewhere in the robe. If the wind arose from emptiness, why wouldn't there be a brushing motion, even when your robe did not move? Since the nature of emptiness is constant, the nature of the wind should be too, and so when the wind stopped, emptiness should also cease to be. The lack of wind can be detected, but what would signify the disappearance of emptiness? If emptiness came and went, it wouldn't be emptiness. And since it is empty, how can it generate wind? If the wind came from the face of the person it brushed, it would blow upon you too. Then while you were setting your robe in order, how could it blow backwards upon other people?